And as all of us know, today is Nirjala Ekadasi, so all of us are fasting from not just grains, beans and rice, but also from water today. So it's a wonderful austerity that all of you have undertaken today. So this will be the nice icing in the cake when Prabhu gives a wonderful class today, and we are just eagerly waiting for that, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. So on behalf of ISKCON Scarborough, we would like to welcome yourself and Mataji again. Thank you. समवेत भक्तवृंद की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय। राधा कृष्ण मिलित रूप विग्रह श्री गौर सुंदर की जय। श्री श्री राधा शिव चौर गोपीनाथ की जय। श्री राधा गोपी वल्लभ की जय। श्री जगन्नाथ श्री बलदेव श्रीमती सुभद्रा महारानी की जय। All glories to the Assembly Lord Krishna. All glories to the Assembly Lord Krishna. All glories to the Assembly Lord Krishna. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Guru. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurani Vicharani Devi Shri 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 Guru. Hare Krishna. So, Bhagavad Gita, everyone? Everyone knows Bhagavad Gita? Yes. So, we are going to stop over wait for him. Going to read from chapter 5, text 22. Page 249. You have it?
Page 249.
249. 5:20. ये हि संस्पर्शजा भोगा
ये हि संपर्शजा भोगा
दुःखयोनया एव ते
दुःखयोनया एव ते
आदि अन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय
आदि अन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय
न तेषु रमते बुधः
न तेषु रमते बुधः
ये हि संस्पर्शजा भोगा
ये हि संपर्शजा भोगा
दुःखयोनया एव ते
दुःखयोनया एव ते
आदि अन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय
आदि अन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय
न तेषु रमते बुधः
न तेषु रमते बुधः
ये हि संस्पर्शजा भोगा
ये हि संपर्शजा भोगा
दुःखयोनया एव ते
दुःखयोनया एव ते
आदि अन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय
आदि अन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय
न तेषु रमते बुधः
न तेषु रमते बुधः ये हि संपर्शजा भोगा
ये हि संस्पर्शजा भोगा
दुःखयोनया एव ते
दुःखयोनया एव ते
आदि अन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय
आदि अन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय
न तेषु रमते बुधः
न तेषु रमते बुधः
ये हि भोगा
ये हि संस्पर्शजा भोगा
दुःखयोनयम् एव ते
दुःखयोनया एव ते
आदि अन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय
आदि अन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय
न तेषु रमते बुधः
न तेषु रमते बुधः
संस्पर्शजा भोगा
ये हि संस्पर्शजा भोगा
दुःखयोनया एव ते
दुःखयोनया एव ते
मध्यवन्तः कौन्तेय
आदि अन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय
न तेषु रमते बुधः
न तेषु रमते बुधः
ये हि संपर्शजा भोगा
ये हि संस्पर्शजा भोगा
दुःखयोनया एव ते
दुःखयोनया एव ते
आदि अन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय
आदि अन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय
न तेषु रमते बुधः
न तेषु रमते बुधः ये
ये
those he certainly संस्पर्शजा
संस्पर्शजा
by contact with the material senses
by contact with the material senses
bhoga enjoyments dukkha distress yonaya sources of eva certainly they are adi beginning anta end vantah subject to kaunteya o son of Kunti na never deshu in those ramate takes delight buddha intelligent person an intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery. It's page 249 for those of you who come here. 249. I'm just trying to read the purport. Material sense pleasures are due to the contact of the material senses, which are all temporary because the body itself is temporary. A liberated soul is not interested in anything which is temporary. Knowing well the joys of transcendental pleasures, how can a liberated soul agree to enjoy false pleasure? In the Padma Purana it is said, Namante yogino nante satyanande chid atmani iti rama padaneshu padenasho parama brahma vidhiyate. The mystics derive unlimited transcendental pleasures from the absolute truth. And therefore the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is also known as Rama. In the Srimad Bhagavatam also, 5.5.1, it is said, Nayam deho deha bhajam niloke kashtan kaman arhate vidbhujam ye tapodivyam putrakayen sattvam shuddhaye diyasmad brahma sukhyam saukhyam tu anantam. My dear sons, there is no reason to labor very hard for sense pleasure while in this human form of life. Such pleasures are available to the stool eaters, hogs. Rather, you should undergo penances in this life by which your existence will be purified. And as a result, you will be able to enjoy unlimited transcendental bliss. Therefore, those who are true yogis or learned transcendentalists are not attracted by sense pleasures, which are the causes of continuous material existence. The more one is addicted to the material pleasures, the more he is entrapped by material miseries. Hare Krishna. So this is a very apropos verse for today, because today we are performing an austerity of not eating or drinking all day today at least until 5:40 a.m. tomorrow. Then the window for breaking the fast opens until 10:43. So this particular verse, even though all the 700 verses in Bhagavad Gita are very important, but this is one of the key verses that established the foundation of devotional service. And we know how important it is to have a strong foundation for anything. So for example, when a high-rise building is built, they dig a very deep hole in the ground. And that's where they pour cement and steel and all those kind of things to make a very strong foundation, to make sure that when the 100-story building comes up, it will actually stay up. And not when there's a wind of 150 kilometers an hour, the whole thing falls down. The foundation is very, very important. Similarly, we say that in children, we want to establish strong foundation of values, the sanskaras as they say, so that when they grow up, they'll become good human beings, good devotees. So this is one of those verses that establishes the foundation upon which the journey on the path of devotional service is established. And the stronger this foundation is, the stronger and the better devotees we will become as we move on. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has narrated a number of verses that, Peter, please don't put the book on the floor. Thank you. This is the same as Krishna's, we respect this. So, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has said many, many verses to Arjuna, which are basically in support of this particular verse. In chapter 8, text 15, Krishna says, Mam upeta punarjanmo dukhalyam ashasam. You have to take this out because this stand is not working very well. Mam upeta punarjanmo dukhalyam ashasam na apnuvanti mahatma sansiddhi param. He says this particular material world is full of miseries and is temporary. However, the great devotees don't have to worry about it because they always attain the highest destination, which is Maya home. So he's using two very key words here. One is saying this material world is full of miseries. But Krishna says in another verse, 5.29, Bhoktaram yake tapasam sarvalok maheshwaram surhridam sarvabhutanam yatva ma shanti uchiti. When he says, I'm also the well-wisher and best friend of all living entities, not just humans, but all living entities. So when you combine the two, a question comes automatically into your mind. It says, Krishna says, I'm your friend, I'm your well-wisher. Yet, I've created this material world which is full of miseries, and you're living here. So you could ask, if you're my best friend, Lord Krishna, why did you put me here in a place of misery, which is full of misery? And Krishna says, and this is actually a quote by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, who is the spiritual master of our own Srila Prabhupada. And in that quote, Krishna says that I have created this material world, which is full of miseries, pain, trouble, and all sorts of suffering. But I did not create this so you may suffer. But I have created this to teach you a lesson that all this suffering and misery is unnecessary. If only you can start your search for happiness that's eternal and joy that is your eternal abode. In other words, he's saying this misery is temporary and you don't have to go for it. If only you go for the real happiness, the real joy. And the real joy and the real happiness by definition is eternal. Any happiness that's temporary cannot be real. Real by definition means permanent. So any happiness that we get in the material world, as Srila Prabhupada explains in his purport, is temporary because we equate happiness with the happiness of the body. Now, second point is that yes, Krishna created this material world, but we are the ones who insisted that we want to come here. There we were happily living in eternal happiness, serving Lord Krishna for his pleasure, and we derived our pleasure from serving Krishna. Lord Chaitanya defines Jiva Swarup Hoy, Krishna Nityadas. That our eternal and constitutional position is that we are Krishna's eternal servants. And we are designed, we the living entities are designed as Satchidananda. Krishna says, Jiva, Mame Vansho Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. We are all part and parcel of Krishna, which means we have all the qualities of Krishna in us. And Krishna is Satchidananda, he is eternal, he is fully conscious, and is full of bliss. And therefore we are also full of bliss, we are eternal, and we are conscious. But something happened. Somehow or the other we developed this envy of Krishna. Why should he be the only enjoyer? Why should he be the only master? Why should you be the only proprietor? And therefore we want to do all those things. And Krishna said, okay, I respect your independence, so I'll let you do that. But in reality you're not allowed to do that, so I'll put you in a sleep-like situation and I'll throw you in a place that I will call a material world. There you can go and enjoy, or at least you think you enjoy. And it's, by the way, with your transcendental senses, you cannot enjoy the way you want to enjoy, because transcendental senses will only receive pleasure when they give pleasure to something that's transcendental, which is Krishna. So the transcendental senses cannot enjoy unless the pleasure is for Krishna. So therefore I'll give you material senses. And by the way, you would look very funny if I just gave you material senses. Like, and imagine Rupa Nuga with no body, 2 ears hanging like this in the air, a nose in the air, 2 eyes in the air, not connected to each other, and just wandering around this place. How funny would Rupa Nuga look? I mean, it looks funny enough as it is, but with this body it looks funny, and without this body you can imagine. So he said, I'll give you a body as a support system for these senses. So we got this body, this material body, and his senses are attached. And our pleasure, our definition of pleasure is the pleasure of these senses. So he said, okay, I will create what is known as sense objects. Sense objects like form, it's like music, something you can hear, something you can see, something you can smell. They are sense objects. So when there is a contact between sense objects and senses, then you feel the pleasure. And that's what Krishna says, Yehi sansparsha bhoga. We are enjoying something because of the contact of our senses with the sense objects. The eyes see something beautiful and we get pleasure. The ears hear something nice, melodious, and we get the pleasure. The tongue tastes something palatable and we get the pleasure. So whenever there is contact between senses and the sense objects, there is this feeling of pleasure. That is what Krishna means by this verse, sansparsha bhoga. Enjoyment that comes out of the contact between sense objects and the senses. So we said, okay, this is great. And we start to enjoy our senses because we do this. Then, there's some very smart people who want to enjoy this as much. And they said, we will encourage you to enjoy. And the whole philosophy of your life will become enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. And these people are known as marketing people. What is the job of marketing? Anybody in marketing here? Okay, so what's the job of marketing people? To get you attracted to the product of the company they work for. Right? In somehow or the other, get you attracted. So I remember in the 60s, even in the 70s, it was cool to smoke. And you'll see all these advertisements, handsome men, good-looking women, smoking and looking very cool. And everybody will say, yeah, I want to look like that. And I remember, like growing up, girls my age would say, I want to marry a person who smokes because he's so cool. So the marketing people had convinced them that smoking is good for you. Even in the 80s and 90s, even today, see beer commercials on television. And what do you see? Anybody see beer commercials on television? And you see this beautiful women, good-looking men, cavorting together with a glass of beer in their hand and look like they're having a great time. And again, the message is, if you drink beer, you'll be happy. If you drink beer, you get a good-looking man or a good-looking woman. That's the implication. So everybody says, yeah, let's do that. And beer companies make billions of dollars all over the world. But again, the concept is enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. What they don't tell you is that with that enjoyment comes the miseries. And Krishna says in this particular verse, Yehi sansparsha bhoga dukha yoniya evte. All the pleasure we get from the contact between our senses and the sense objects is the source of our misery. Interesting. In other words, Krishna is saying, all your material pleasure is the source of your misery. Now, it is possible that the misery doesn't follow immediately the experience of the pleasure. But eventually it does. It's like, I don't know how many days in India, there used to be this grinding wheel. And they'll take wheat and make flour from that. You know, and they'll go around and around and around. You ever seen that? It's called chakki in India. Right? You go around and around and around. So if your point is, your hand is here, eventually it will come to this point. It may take some time, but it will come here. So similarly, the time as a chakra is revolving. Sometimes it will take some time to get that misery to you, but it will come. So take an example. We're talking about smoking, and it's been proven time and again that those who smoke eventually end up with cancer of the lungs. It may take 20 years, it may take 30 years, but it will happen. Similarly, those who drink will eventually get disease of the liver. I personally know people who have got liver basically gone, they're looking for transplant or they had a transplant because of this drinking so much. Similarly, association between opposite sex, very pleasurable, but a lot of people who are not careful on the AIDS and all those STDs happen in the world. So the misery is following. And Krishna says you cannot avoid it. So in other words, pleasure is not always a pleasure. As a matter of fact, Krishna says in the material world, the definition of pleasure is different from what you might think. I think this young boy sitting there looks very smart. He probably gets straight A's. I'm going to ask you a very simple question. How do you spell pleasure? No, wrong. How do you spell pleasure?
P-A-I-N.
Thank you. Exactly right. Very smart boy. So I was right in guessing. His pleasure is spelled as P-A-I-N. Pain. But I'm very impressed. Very impressed. Thank you. Yeah. You knew exactly where I was going. So in this material world, what we think is pleasure is really not pleasure. It's very temporarily pleasure. It's pain. P-A-I-N. Because no matter what material pleasure we're looking for, it is temporary in nature and it results in miseries. Which is the other point Krishna makes in that 8:50 that I was quoting. He says, Dukkhalyam ashashvata. Ashashvata means temporary. It's very interesting because when we think temporary, we think about pleasure. But remember, Krishna also said, I'm your best friend, I'm your well-wisher. What he's talking about is that all that pleasure you think is pleasure is really misery, but I'm such a good friend of yours. Actually, I'm going to make this one temporary, so your misery is also temporary. In other words, if you're miserable, that misery is temporary also. It will one day go away. And that's what Krishna tells Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita 2.14. He says, Matra sparshasthu kaunteya shitosha shuddhutukana agam apaino anityo tant puchakso bharata. He says, what was suffering you're having? Again, he says, Matra sparshasthu, which just means from the contact between your senses and your sense objects. So Krishna is saying in two different places, both your pleasure and pain come from the contact between your senses and the sense objects. And he's saying they're both temporary. So in other words, your misery is also temporary, and that's where Krishna is coming in. He's saying, I'm your well-wisher, so I'll make sure your temporary is also temporary. Sorry, your misery is also temporary, because I don't want you to suffer too long. Imagine for a second, if the material world was eternal, if our bodies were eternal, and you got sick. That means for eternity, you're going to be sick. Imagine if you're in trouble financially. That means eternally, you'll be in financial trouble. Imagine if you're having difficulty with your children. That means for the rest of the eternity, you'll have difficulty with your children. How miserable would that be? We complain about the few years we're miserable for. If Krishna was not so smart, and he made this whole thing, everything permanent, how terrible would that be? He did make some place permanent, but that's the place for bliss. So he can't have eternal bliss. He has a place for that. But he did not make a place of eternal misery, because he loves us. That's why Krishna says, Suhridam Sarvabhutana. I am everyone's well-wisher. I will not wish anything bad for you. But our problem is we have forgotten. After having come here, we got so busy looking for sense pleasure that we started identifying with the senses. That's called false ego, ahankara. We think we are this body, and therefore we associate everything with this body. And in associating with this body, identifying with this body, we forgot our true nature. So we forgot our true nature, which in Sanskrit is called sevaka. In Sanskrit, in English it's called servant. In Sanskrit it's called sevak. But it's kind of funny, we forgot, but we didn't forget everything. So for example, we forgot where our happiness comes from. What we did not forget we're supposed to be happy. In Vedanta Sutra, it's 1.1.12 says, Anandamayo Abhyasa, which means our true nature is to be happy. We did not forget that. But we forgot what makes us happy. Similarly, we forgot the sevaka, which means we are servant. But we only forgot the say part. We didn't forget vaka part. You know what vaka means? Vaka means a crane. Have you ever seen a crane? It looks like a swan almost. It stands in a river on one foot and closes its eyes. Looks like it's meditating. So in Hindi, there's a word called Bagula Bhagat, which means a false devotee. Which means he pretends to be a devotee, but he's not. And that's a crane. So he stands on one leg as if performing austerities, closes his eyes as if in meditation. But what is he doing? He's looking in the water to see if a fish goes by. And as soon as the fish goes by, grabs it. That's what we have become. So that being a sevaka, we become a vaka, which is a crane. And we close our eyes as if we're thinking about Krishna, but I don't want to say what we're thinking about. We're all thinking sense pleasure. And as a result, we are feeling that pleasure, which really is, as my very good friend here, the smartest kid in town, explained, really the pain. Eventually, if not right away, it is the pain we are feeling. All because we're looking for that pleasure. And Krishna says here, Adi Anvanta Antavantah Kaunteya. All the pleasure that we're looking for has beginning and has an end. Why? Because we are associating the pleasure with this body, and this body itself has a beginning and the end. So whatever pleasure we have, even if it lasts until the body lasts, and the body is pleasureless. Imagine a billionaire who was born into billionaire parents. So he has known nothing but riches. But those billions of dollars that he has, what will happen with them? Either he will lose them somehow in investments, bad investments, that happens a lot, or the money would leave him when he leaves his body. But one way or the other, the two are going to separate. Even before it is separated, what will happen? The miseries of old age, disease, and death are sure to get it, or her. So even though this person is full of money, more money than he can count, more money than they know what to do with, but they are going to get old, they are going to get diseases, and they are going to eventually die. Those miseries are not going to leave them. There was a very famous actor, Robin Williams. Has anybody heard of him? Person, Robin Williams? What happened to him? Do you know what happened to him eventually? He committed suicide. Imagine a very rich, very famous, and so-called very talented person committing suicide. And you say, what happened? somehow inside is very hollow. It was not a fulfilling life for that person. And he's not the only one. There's so many cases of very famous people committing suicide. Mental diseases, mental issues have become #1 disease in the world today. So many people we think are so stable, so rich, so happy, end up with mental diseases. And by the way, devotees are not exempt from mental illnesses. We have started to see a number of cases in our own congregation now, where long-term devotees are starting to feel depression, which is a mental disease. What's happening? Because what's happening is we're not being very intelligent about what we do, what we pursue. For example, Prahlad Maharaj, as he was preaching to his demon friends, 5-year-old Prahlad Maharaj, teaching his classmates, and he was saying, Sukham Andriyakam Datya, Dehi Yogena Dehina, Sarvatra Labdhate Deva, Yatha Dukha Ayatnata. Saying, my dear demon friends, you are all going for sense pleasures, but you don't recognize, you don't realize that all that will be available to you according to your karma anyway. Whatever your karmas, the 55 karmas are this time, you will get them. They are available to you automatically, just like the miseries come to you without trying for it. How many of us wake up one morning and say, today I'm going to bang my head against this wall and I'll roll down the stairs, I'll end up in the hospital for 19 days. How many of us do that? But it happens. How many of us leave home saying, today I'm going to have an accident. I had to be something worthy. How do you think that? But it happens anyway. How many of us get up and will invest in the stock market knowing for sure this stock is going to lose? But it happens anyway. So Prahlad Maharaj's point is that you work so hard, 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 18 hours a day, work so hard for a little bit of pleasure without realizing that whatever pleasure is in your karma will get anywhere. And working so hard, you get all these diseases, including the mental depression I was talking about. It's also going to come to you anyway. So you work so hard just to get the disease. You work so hard just to become depressed. You work so hard just to become devoid of any pleasure you thought you would get. I personally know people who work 16, 17, 18 hours a day every day. And when finally they take a 2-week vacation, they go away to Bahamas with their laptop. And they sit on the beach, work on their laptop. What pleasure are they getting? And what are they getting it for? So their children will be well off. Well, children have brought their own karmas too. Not every successful man's children are successful. Not every rich man's children are rich. And not every poor man's children are poor. Not every sick man's children are sick. Each one of them is bringing their own karmas. Why are we working so hard to get that temporary pleasure? Temporary pleasure, that Krishna says very clearly, will ultimately bring in the miseries because it is the source of miseries. Every pleasure, sensory pleasure, we go for will result in material miseries. So he equates material pleasure with material pain. Hence the spelling of pleasure as P-A-I-N. Then Krishna also says, Natteshu Rabate Buddha. And he says Buddha means intelligent person. And in the purport, I'm going to go back to the purport, if you want to go back to the book as well, page 249. Prabhupada is quoting from Padma Purana. Ramante yogino nante satyanande chid atmani iti rama padena so param brahma vidhiyate. So the mystics derive unlimited transcendental pleasures from the absolute truth. And therefore the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is also known as Rama. So we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That Rama in Hare Rama is also referring to Krishna. The one who does Raman is Rama. The one who enjoys, the Supreme enjoys Rama, that's Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada said you can think of Rama as Lord Ramchandra, as Lord Balaram, even Lord Parashuram if you want, but it really is Lord Krishna. So the intelligent focus on the one who is the supremely blissful personality, the supreme personality of Godhead, the absolute truth. And by doing that, they also derive their bliss from it. So in other words, if we focus on serving the supreme personality of Godhead, the absolute truth, Lord Shri Krishna, then we will automatically receive that pleasure. In Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, Sukadeva Goswami is saying, Savai Punsam Paro Dharma, Yato Bhakta Bhakti Yadonchja, Ahatiki Apratihata, Yayatma Suprasidati. Suprasidati means becomes very happy. Atma means us, living entity, the soul. So when does it become very happy? When and only when we perform incessant, which means non-stop, and unmotivated, which means without any material desire, service to Lord Krishna. In other words, we are happy when we make Krishna happy. We are not happy when we do something that does not make Krishna happy. Very simple formula. Krishna's happiness equals our happiness. Krishna's unhappiness equals our unhappiness. And Krishna is our father, Krishna is our mother. Krishna says, Pitaham asajagato mata data pitama. He's our father, his mother, his grandfather, and he is happy when we serve him nicely. But he wants to see us happy. He is not happy when we are not happy. And we are not happy here, and therefore Krishna is not happy. Very simple. And it's all connected together. We sound like a vicious circle. You are not happy because Krishna is not happy. Krishna is not happy because we are not happy. And we are not happy because we are not making Krishna happy. It's all connected. Almost sounds like a vicious circle, but it's not. Why? Because the tangent to take us out of the circle is there, which is simply perform service for the happiness of Krishna. And Krishna has given us 9 processes of devotional service. Right? Any one of them. And the simplest one, the 2 simplest ones are Shravana and Kirtan. Hear about Krishna, chant about Krishna. Hear Krishna's name, chant Krishna's name. Hear Krishna's pastimes, chant Krishna's pastimes. Hear Krishna's glories, chant Krishna's glories. What could be so difficult about that? And by the way, the proof that we are living entity, the proof that we as living entity become happy when we hear and chant about Krishna is that pleasure we all get when we hear the stories of the past life of Lord Krishna. The pleasure that we all get when we chant. And we may say that it's not a lot of pleasure, maybe, but if that even little bit of pleasure wasn't there, none of us would be chanting for such a long time. Which we are. None of us would be chanting Krishna's name, Hare Krishna mantra so many times a day. Those of us chanting 16 rounds, how many thousands of times start Krishna's name? And we're doing it. There must be some pleasure, whether we agree or not, whether we realize or not, but the pleasure is there. And as we become purer, as we understand that we are not this body, as we start to believe that our happiness lies in serving Krishna, that pleasure grows. We move from the offensive stage of chanting, which is keeping that pleasure away from us, to clearest stage, where we start to taste the namabhas, start to get slight taste of Krishna's name, of the pleasure from Krishna's name. And then we move on to the pure chanting, where the taste is fully developed. And then we cannot stay away from chanting, from hearing about Krishna. And so Krishna is saying in this particular verse, those who are intelligent, they stay away from material pleasures because they know material pleasure not only is temporary, eventually it will lead to misery. Either misery from simply absence of that pleasure taken away, or because the pleasure itself turns into pain because of the reaction that happens. So pleasure is taken away when we lose the money we had, and pleasure is taken away when pleasure of smoking or drinking turns into a disease, like cancer or cirrhosis of liver or whatever. But eventually it goes away. So the intelligent person stays away from that and goes for the permanent. And permanent by definition is the relationship between eternal with the eternal. And that relationship is eternal. So who is eternal? Us, the living entity. Who is eternal that we want to have the relationship with is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God. And that relationship between this eternal and that eternal is known as devotional service. So we establish our relationship with the eternal abode of bliss, eternally blissful, eternally conscious, the supremely conscious, Supreme Personality of Godhead, through the performance of devotional service. That devotional service that is performed simply for the pleasure of Krishna. In the second verse that Prabhupada quotes in the purport, there is a very nice teaching by Rishabhdev. And he's teaching his sons. And he's saying, my dear sons, why do you work so hard for temporary pleasure that's available even to the stool eaters like a hog? What pleasures are available to a hog? Eating, mating, defending, and sleeping. If that's all you did after working 18 hours a day, I know people, honestly I know people who don't see their children for months. Children are sleeping when they go to work, and children are already asleep when they come home from work. They literally go months without seeing children. What's the use of working that hard? So Bishop Dev is saying, what is the use of working so hard if you live the life of a hog? You simply eat, mate, defend, and sleep. He's saying, so rise above that platform and serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which will take you away from this place of misery and put you in a place of eternal bliss. That place of eternal bliss where you will be eternally, blissfully serving the supremely blissful Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. And that is Golaka Vrindavan. So simply from that recognition, simply from that realization that looking for, working for, trying very hard to receive the material sensory pleasure can only lead to material miseries, sensory miseries, and therefore, and that pleasure has a beginning and an end, and therefore it is not very smart to go after them. And those who are intelligent, they don't get involved with material pleasures at all. They work very hard to receive the eternal bliss by serving that eternally blissful Supreme Personality of God. Hare Krishna. Thank you. I'll leave a few minutes for questions. Questions, comments, corrections? Anybody was awake?
Not quite sure, but I can
Comment, yeah.
comment. I was recently listening to a lecture by His Holiness Bhakti Rasamrita Swami,
and he was saying exactly the same thing. He was saying our soul is eternal and our body is temporary, right? That's why, because of the conflict, right? Because one is eternal and one is temporary. That's why whatever you do here in this material world is never going to fetch you happiness.
Right.
Which is so true.
Absolutely true. Yeah.
And my second, this is a question to I'm a teacher, so, and I have parents who work, like as you said, 18 hours a day, and my heart really reaches out to them. But how do I tell them? How do I uplift them? They're all very good people, you know. And it's in the context of a school, it's not appropriate to preach, you know, about God. So, what is the solution for souls like them? How do they come out of this vicious circle?
Excellent question, actually. So, and it applies not to the parents that you know,
Yeah.
it applies to most of us.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, most of us are not interested in being told that they should not work so hard. In being told that even if you don't work hard, you get the money anyway. Nobody wants to believe that. So basically, Krishna does address that in the second chapter, I think it's verse 59. He says, Vishya vinivartate niraharasate na rasvardhan rasovyas paramdashtva nivartate. Somehow we have to show them that there is a better way, that there is a higher taste, and that no matter how hard they work, what they're getting is by the mercy of somebody else. They can understand if you told them that it's the mercy of their boss, but what they have difficulty understanding is that it's the boss of the boss. It's the boss of all the bosses. So somehow we have to help them understand that a supreme entity like that exists. We can give them examples of people who work very hard and don't earn enough money, even after working so hard. And at the same time, there are people who hardly work, and they got all the money. We can show them people who perform all this, yogas and things like that, but they're still very sick. And we show the people who smoke and drink and they're very healthy. Basically, the point is that this world is full of contradictions. And the only way we can understand the contradictions is if we understand two things. Well, three things. One is that we are spirit soul, we're not this body. Because we're spirit soul, there's a concept of reincarnation. And that's why we get different bodies. And third is karma. When we get body, we get karmas with it. And while we may not have a lot of control over this life, we do have control over the next life. If I had more time, I would have told you stories about how people got children who died, and by the mercy of the Lord and devotee, the child was able to speak for a few seconds and explain to their parents that you're talking about being my father. Which father are you talking about? The one I'm going to get a body from, the one I had before, or before that, or this time. So we explain this to them and explain to them that no matter what you do, somehow or the other your miseries will not go away until you take shelter of that supreme personality of God. And I don't care whether you call him Krishna or Allah or Jehovah, that is not the point. The point is there is a supreme personality of God who alone can help you. And until you seek shelter, these miseries will not go away. So you're not telling them to stop working, not telling them to stop trying to work on money, you're trying to help them understand that what they get is all they will get because that's what they deserve, based on their karmas. However, they can help the situation next time if only they take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and become somewhat attached. Spend a few minutes, start with 1 minute a day, move up to 5 minutes a day. Some will accept, some will not even accept that. We cannot help them. But maybe out of the 10, you can help one person, and that's a victory. That's all you have. Sure. I still have 3 more minutes. If anybody has any comments or questions? Okay, so do you all understand that we are all guilty, almost without exception, we are all guilty of going after material pleasure. And until we develop that dependence away from the exercise of getting that material pleasure to the exercise of getting that eternal pleasure. We're not going to solve any problems. We're going to continue to be in this miserable situation, or position, or abode called this material world. If it's not caused by yourself, it's caused by somebody else. Not by somebody else, it's the demigods. Somehow or the other it will happen. And Krishna has said, there is no way out unless you surrender to me. And you cannot surrender to Krishna until you understand Krishna. And you cannot understand Krishna without performing devotional service. And you cannot perform devotional service unless you get association of the devotees. And you will not stay in the association of the devotees unless you get a guru who tells you why you should stay in the association of the devotees. Who tells you what Krishna wants. Who tells you how to serve Krishna. And who tells you how to stay in the company of the devotees and give up the association of the non-devotees. Therefore, performance of devotional service, including chanting 16 rounds of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and getting initiated. We're doing this book called Lecture of Devotion, we're doing a chapter which says the first and primary requirement, first and primary principle is that you must take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. And having taken shelter, you must follow each and every instruction of that spiritual master. And a first-class disciple is the one who knows the mind of his or her spiritual master, knows what the spiritual master wants him or her to do, and does it without being asked. Second class is waits for the instructions and then does it. Third class is despite all instructions, does not do it. So let's try to be first-class disciple of our spiritual master, follow all his instructions. Simply by following his instructions, we can please Supreme Personality of Godhead. This whole verse that we talked about today is going after the highest principle, which is the absolute truth. You can be in a position of permanent pleasure as opposed to sensory pleasure, which is temporarily in nature. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Shri Shri Radha Gopi Vallabh.
Ki bajayo jaya Gurang Chandi Arati Kusho Ki bajaya jaya Gurang Chandi Arati Kusho Janadikat Hare Rama
श्री भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय नित्य लीला प्रविष्ट विष्णुपाद परमहंस श्री 108 श्री भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय। राधा कृष्ण मिलित तनु विप्रलंब विग्रह श्री गौर सुंदर की जय। श्री मायापुर नवद्वीप धाम की जय। श्री मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। श्री श्याम कुंड श्री राधा कुंड की जय। श्री श्री राधा गोपी वल्लभ की जय। श्री राधा क्षीरचोर गोपीनाथ की जय। श्री जगन्नाथ श्री बलदेव श्रीमती सुभद्रा महारानी की जय। भक्ति विघ्न विनाशकारी नृसिंहदेव की जय। प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। ट्रांसेंडेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की जय। ट्रांसेंडेंटल प्रसादम डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की जय। गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि बोल। All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namne. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurvani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatari.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste
महादेव भगवान की जय, प्रहलाद महाराज की जय, गौर प्रेम श्रील प्रभुपाद की
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Welcome to, on behalf of ISKCON Scarborough, welcome to our Friday evening program. Everyone is looking so energetic. Today is Nirjala Ekadashi, and so devotees are fasting from grains and water until tomorrow morning, Dwadashi. After 6 a.m., devotees will be breaking their fast.
5:40.
5:40 a.m.
542?
5:42
542.
5:42 a.m.
No, 542 to where?
5:40 to 10:43.
So
That's
we
right.
break 1041.
So 5:43 to 10:41. So that is the fast breaking time. Please keep that in mind. So first, we'd like to start off by thanking His Grace Rupananda Prabhu for a wonderful lecture on Bhagavad Gita chapter 5, verse 22. And also, we'd like to welcome Mataji Krishna Bhakti Devadas Mataji. Mothers, so kind to come. Hare Krishna. So on Sunday, we have a very special program in ISKCON Scarborough. It's the Panihati program where we will have chipped rice. So it's a chipped rice festival. Hare Krishna. It's a very special program, so please come out on Saturday morning. The program starts at 10:30 in the morning. Sunday morning. Sunday morning at 10:30 in the morning. So please do attend, and we'd love to have everyone show up and full of energy after breaking the fast on Saturday morning. On Thursday, the coming Thursday, we have another very, very important and special program at ISKCON Scarborough. We have the very esteemed delegates from Mayapur who are coming to ISKCON Scarborough to fundraise for the Temple of Vedic Planetarium. As you can see, we have Lord Nityananda and Lord Nityananda's Padaka and Lord Nishimadev and the Shadari, who will also be coming with them to ISKCON Scarborough. That's such The program starts at 6:30 p.m. sharp, so please do attend, and please get this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to associate not only with the devotees but also to see Srila Prabhupada's dream becoming a reality. It's Thursday, that's right. So Thursday, it's a very special day. It's different from our Friday and Sunday programs. This is a Thursday at 6:30. And then finally, the following Saturday and Sunday, we have the Unionville program that ISKCON Scarborough is leading for the first time. So this is a very special program where we are going to be participating in a very large country fair where there will be up to 25 to 30,000 people in attendance. And we are going to try to spread the message of Srila Prabhupada by all going there with various services to be rendered, such as book distribution and kirtan and a whole bunch of other services. So we're having that next Saturday and Sunday, so June 6th and 7th at Unionville. And so as part of that, at the temple, we have our very special volunteers meeting tomorrow, Saturday at 1 p.m. So all those who have said that they would like to volunteer for the Unionville Festival, please make sure that you write down tomorrow at 1 o'clock will be the volunteers meeting. Lots of items to be discussed. We have less than 9 days to go. 8 days to go. So please make sure that you attend without forgetting. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So as most of you know, His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj's Swami's health is not very good. So we have sent an email to all our congregation members to observe this Nirjala Ekadasi for Maharaj's good health. So today also in our chanting, we will dedicate this to Maharaj's good health as well. So sincerely, let's chant one round of Hare Krishna Mahamantra for the health of His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj. And also we'll dedicate this one round of chanting to Pankaj Prabhu's wife's mother-in-law. So she's seriously sick, so we will chant one round of Hare Krishna Mahamantra for her good health as well. Hare Krishna.
Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। श्री श्री राधा गोपी वल्लभ की जय। गौ सीताराम प्रेमानंद की जय। जय गोविंदाय की जय। जगन्नाथ दक्षिण की जय। विघ्न विनाश नरसिंहदेव की जय। गौ सीताराम प्रेमानंद हरि बोल। महाप्रसादे गोविंदे नमो ब्राह्मणे वैष्णवे राजन विश्वास नजायते। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर निवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे। श्री श्री राधा गोपी वल्लभ महाप्रसाद की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय। गौ सीताराम प्रेमानंदे।
It's okay.